I personally love seeing the behind the scenes of people's UX projects and processes, which is why I make a lot of these behind the design videos. So today I'm really excited to walk you through my most recent project, this cycle syncing app called Faze. I'm going to share the problem I set out to solve, the user goals, research, wireframes, and finally I'll give you a behind the scenes look at my actual XD file and show you how I did some of the most fun interactions. If you're new to my channel, hi, I'm Maddie. I'm a product designer and currently a creative resident at Adobe, and here on YouTube I make videos about design and productivity. Make sure to hit subscribe if you aren't already, and let's get into it. And just a little bit of background as to why this sort of problem was really interesting for me. I read a book called In the Flow, and I also read a book called Period Power, which I will leave linked below if you're interested in reading them or learning more about this. But I basically learned that all people operate on a circadian rhythm. That's something that we've all heard of probably. It's a 24-hour cycle. But people who ovulate also operate on what's called an infradian rhythm, and that is the give or take 28-day cycle that is the menstrual cycle. And a lot of things happen throughout that cycle. There are, of course, 4 different phases that we all probably learned back in the day, but what we didn't learn is how those hormones and hormone changes really affect how we live our lives, how we get work done, relate to others, what best foods to eat during those times, how best to move our bodies, and how best to sort of take care of ourselves. So I thought it would be cool to come up with a concept that really helps people who ovulate to learn how they feel and have it be more predictable when it comes to their mood, how they work, and how they interact with others. And so that's sort of where this all came from. And it was interesting to talk to people about this because many people don't really know about this infradian rhythm or don't know much about their cycle. And that was me only about a year ago before I read these books. And so it's been a really fun project to work on, and I'm excited to show you a deeper look. Okay, so first things first, the problem statement that I ended up coming up with for this project was most cycle tracking apps only predict the first day of a new period and an estimated ovulation window, but there's so much more to the menstrual cycle than that. People who ovulate want to understand their cycles on a deeper level so they can live up to their full potential in several areas of their life. So that should kind of paint a picture of the overarching problem that I am working through here. So in order to learn more about that, what I did was conduct a survey that I shared out on my Instagram and tried to have a lot of people share as well. And so specifically it was asking for people who ovulate, and some people don't know, but if you're on birth control, any form of hormonal birth control, you're not ovulating. So basically I ended up having 30 valid responses for this study, and I'm going to block out the names, of course, and emails and all of that. But here is just a high level look at the data that I got. What was actually really telling was this section about why people started using this method, and then kind of what was missing and pairing that together and figuring out an opportunity for sort of improvement within these types of apps. Another interesting thing that came out of this research was that I found that a lot of people only check the apps when they're about to get their period so that they can be prepared for that, which, you know, is really common and valid. But for, you know, those of us who ovulate, there's a lot of things going on during our cycle that we might want to be aware of that aren't just like when we're about to start our period or when we are, you know, ovulating. There's a lot of other things that people don't really understand are going on that they might want to know about. And so yeah, that's sort of an opportunity to be using the app more often if it were to help you out in different areas of your cycle than what's currently being covered. So out of that research, I'm just going to pick out a few things that were really telling and that really kind of guided the project, and those are what I'm calling the user goals. So the user goals, according to that research, were people want to understand why they feel a certain way. They want to be more productive and creative. They do want to know when they're fertile. They want to know when they're about to start their period. They want to know where they are in their cycle on any given day, how they're going to feel during the upcoming days and weeks, and they want to take charge of their mental health. Some other insights were that over 50% of the people that I surveyed only open the app during their menstrual phase and about 1 or 2 other times per month. So they're not really getting all of the benefits of like learning about all the different phases and what's going on. They often forget to track and enter their data. They feel that a lot of the good stuff is behind the paywall of the current app that they're using, which is really frustrating for them. And about 75% of the people I surveyed said that all 4 of those things were something that they were interested in having their apps help them with. Okay, now I'll walk you through the wireframes. They came from these sketches, which I'll insert a picture on the screen. I start completely analog, and then once I kind of sketched out each screen a couple times and felt comfortable, then I actually moved into XD. So if you can see here, I actually designed the home screen a few different times here. And so it just sort of started evolving. I knew basically what I wanted to have on that screen, but I think that this final solution really kind of felt the most harmonious. And so this is what I ended up going with. The menu, I also did a screen where you can record your data for the day. And the point of this screen was to have it be really, really quick and easy for someone to do this every single day, because it can feel tedious to like record, you know, data every single day about how you're feeling. But if you just have to type out literally one word that describes kind of how you're feeling, rate your energy, mood, and focus just by doing these sliders, that can be something that you do in literally 60 seconds. So that was the point of that, was for it to be really quick. And the decision for it to be that way came from my research. People said it was really tedious and they always forgot to record their data. But with something like this, it can become a habit and you can get it done really fast. This is just a list of all your previous cycle charts in terms of charting your temperature, because that is how you see, you know, kind of like your fertility window. And I got a lot of this based off of the app called Daisy that I currently use. So I really just sort of amended that for this app. Didn't end up focusing a lot on this cycle story, but that was going to be an educational piece. Then these tips that are specific to each phase of your cycle. And if I didn't already mention, I kind of equate the phases to seasons of the year. And that's something that they do in a lot of these books about cycle awareness, because it's really easy to remember them that way. Your period is your winter, then you move into spring, which is your follicular phase. Then when you're ovulating, you're in your summer, and your luteal phase is your autumn, sort of leading up to the next winter or your next sort of day one. So that's sort of how I frame all of this too. Of course, we have your settings, and then this is a closer look at your superpower and your kryptonite, your strengths and weaknesses of each phase. And then the on this day page, which will tell you an average of how you feel on day 8 or day 9 or day 10, etc. So once I got that all figured out, I was able to move into the high fidelity designs. But quickly, I want to first touch on the branding for this. Because I thought it was really fun to come up with. So this is sort of the really basic style guide for this app. I kind of came up with this concept where each of the 4 phases would be maybe a different expression. So, you know, they don't have to be like exactly tied to, you know, one or the other, but based on the kind of average strengths and weaknesses of each phase, when you look at sort of women across the world, a lot of people feel really happy during their ovulatory phase. They feel really sleepy during their menstrual phase. They feel really curious during their spring or their follicular phase, and they feel a bit worried or anxious sometimes during their luteal phase. And so I just sort of wanted to come up with this way of showing that we, you know, as people who ovulate, we have a range of different moods and emotions and strengths and weaknesses, and they all sort of make up who we are, and none of them are positive or negative, but they're just sort of part of us, which I think is just kind of a cute way to show that. So anyway, that's the app icon and the logo. And then I wanted to make the branding super colorful and fun and not just focus on like pinks, if that makes sense, because a lot of period tracker apps do that. So I wanted to make sure that I had a color to represent each season. So this here was winter, this was spring, this was fall, and I believe this was summer. I could be wrong, I'm kind of forgetting. Yeah, and so then I sort of just built it out with some different colors, make sure that things were going to be ADA compliant, all of that jazz. Then I chose Sophia Pro because it's nice and grounding and really easy to read, but it also feels fun and lighthearted. Okay, then we have the high fidelity designs, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because you can see them in the case study on Behance, which I'll have linked below. But I did want to just show you how I did a couple of the most fun interactions. So let's see, if you go down here, you can see I have all of the flows. So I wrote out what flows I wanted to show in the case study: recording data, seeing your charts, the tips, how you see on this day, strengths and weaknesses, and how you see your previous cycle if you tap into the details. So it might be fun to just kind of go through how I animated these. So for this part, we go to record our data. We can input this word that describes how we feel. We can also drag these out to rate our energy, mood, and focus. And then we can kind of finish that up. And so that is really all that I mocked up for that. And it was really simple. So all I had to do was have a few different pages. So first I had a page where this keyboard is just like the opacity is completely down and it is a little bit lower on the screen. That way, whenever I tap this field, if you can see in prototype mode, once this field is tapped, then this will slide up. And then if we come over here, these are super easy. So basically you can just tap on this and slide it. As you can see, there's a drag trigger here, and it will animate to this screen. Same here, if you click and drag on this, it will animate to this screen. And if you click and drag on this, it will animate to that last screen. And so that was really simple to do. And of course, in order to do that, I just had this small, this really skinny like line, and I was able to move it. So if you see under here, it's just really small and it's hiding. And then the line length increases, each time so that it looks like you're dragging it. In order to rate those things. Next is these charts. So something you can do is go into the menu, click on my charts, and then you can actually see all of these different ones. You can tap into a specific one, and it will show you sort of what day that you're on there. And over here, it's showing you a previous cycle. So this is showing that if I want to click on a particular point, I click there, and then it will show me what my temperature was that day and show me like what day I'm on, the measurement time, and I could have recorded notes and that kind of thing. So that was kind of cool and maybe a little bit of a tricky interaction. So basically what I did was I have this dot here that is just invisible at the moment, and it will come into frame here and the lines actually just move. And then this little indicator will come up from the bottom. So it's all right here. And then on this screen, the opacity goes from 0 to 100, and it kind of grows and moves upwards into frame there. And so this is the more general data, like of the cycle in general, whereas this is specific to a cycle day. This is specifically day 6. And so these had to sort of swap in and out. So on this screen, this one goes all the way to the bottom. This one's also at the bottom, and then it will slide up. So we'll just look at that one more time. So I'm just finding this point. I will click on it, and then this line expands, everything comes up, and these switch. The other fun section is tips. So if you go into this, you can actually swipe across all of these, and it will show you tips specific to each phase of your cycle. And so that was really simple. I basically just created, if you can see here, this entire sort of thing that then I moved over to the left each time we were going on to a new screen. So that was actually pretty simple to animate. And one of my favorite sections is the on this day. So inside the menu, you can look at on this day, and you have your average energy, mood, and focus scores for whatever cycle day you're on. You also have the words that you have recorded on these days. So, you know, when you record a word more than once, you'll have a little superscript. And so we have inspired, productive, scattered, creative. So that just gives you an idea. If maybe you're on day 7, you want to check out day 8, what you might expect to be feeling. And of course, you can go sort of back and forth to whatever, you know, however many days of your cycle that you have recorded. And so for that was kind of fun to animate because I wanted to do sort of like a loading animation for this. So if you see here, I have these numbers that are, you know, at 0% opacity, and same with these words. And then on load, or as you're going to the next screen, they just sort of fade in and up kind of quickly. And I used snap as the, let's see. Oh no, I used ease in and out as the easing. And so that looked really nice. And then of course you just can kind of go back and forth between days 8 and 9 is how I mocked it up, just to show sort of that cadence. And so whenever this is clicked, basically this section will kind of move to the left, and this will move in from the right. And so yeah, that was a super fun one too. And lastly, we have this section where you can look at your strengths and weaknesses for a specific phase. So if you tap into here, then you can get a little bit of an idea of why things are happening based on the hormones that are kind of combining together, and how to take advantage of this. So in your work, relationships, creativity, and environment, there are just some general tips here. I also wanted to make it clear that this isn't supposed to be suggestive. It's more like you can either agree or disagree with something that the app is suggesting. And so if it doesn't resonate, then, you know, you can make that clear, and maybe it will suggest something else that you might be feeling, or you might help the app learn how you feel in certain phases. So I wanted to just sort of illustrate that with these. And whenever you click, yes, I feel this, then it's sort of like, you know, checks off, moves to the bottom, and it says, thank you for providing that feedback. It helps the app give you more helpful suggestions. So I just wanted to include this little portion here to sort of show that the app is really personalized for you, and you can kind of teach it to how to help you better. This video would be hours long if I went into great detail on each step of the process, but if there's anything that you're specifically interested in seeing, please let me know in the comments below, and maybe I'll make a more detailed video about certain things if that would be helpful for you. Also, if you did like this video, you will probably like the playlist called Behind the Design, where I actually have a series showing each step of the process that I took, similar to this, but with a different project, a smart diffuser app. So you could see how I conducted the research and every single step up until building the final case study. So feel free to check that out, give this video a thumbs up, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!